You know, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is this expectation of like total clinical precision.
Right, yeah, like engineering or something.
Exactly. I mean, you fall off a bike, you break your arm, and they put you in that cold room with the humming machine.
And the x-ray just shows that jagged white line right on the screen.
Yeah, and the doctor just points to it with a pen and is like, well, there it is. It's broken.
It's incredibly binary. It's either broken or it's not.
Right, and it's clean. And I think it's comforting because we like things to be visible. We like to categorize our pain.
Oh, absolutely. We want proof.
But then you step into the world of human relationships, neurodevelopment and emotional trauma, and suddenly that X-ray machine is just completely useless.
Yeah, it really is.
We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is, well, entirely invisible and honestly incredibly murky.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters.
It really is.
And it gets particularly complicated when we try to untangle the big questions, like why we connect with the people we do, and more bafflingly, why we sometimes stay in situations that are actively harming us.
And that is exactly what we are exploring today. So welcome to today's deep dive.
It's a big one.
It really is. We are taking you on a massive journey through our stack of sources today. We're weaving together clinical psychology papers on the nervous system, research on pair bonding, practical therapeutic guides, and even some pretty mind-bending neuroquantum theories on consciousness.
Which I'm very excited to get into.
Oh, me too. Basically, we want to figure out why we connect, how our own biology can actually trap us in toxic loops, and how the latest science says we can rewire our brains to break free.
It is a lot of ground to cover, for sure. But it fundamentally changes how you view human interaction.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think before we look at how the machinery of a relationship breaks down, we really need to establish what the baseline is supposed to look like.
Right, the healthy baseline.
Yeah. The sources emphasize that a healthy relationship rests on a few core pillars. We're talking about, trust, open communication, safety, and mutual respect.
Which all sounds great on paper.
Right. And a healthy bond is supposed to enhance your individual well-being, not just consume it entirely. You maintain your independence, you have strict boundaries, and most importantly, your nervous system generally feels at rest. It just feels safe.
Which sounds completely logical to anyone listening. I mean, of course you'd want that.
Yeah, obviously.
But the catch is, humans aren't just logical creatures.
Yeah.
We are deeply, evolutionarily biological.
Right.
And that brings us to the whole concept of pair bonding, which isn't just about romance or mating.
No, it's much deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a profound behavioral and physiological tether.
But why did we even develop that tether, though? I mean, lots of animals just mate and move on.
Well, it really comes down to human infants. Think about a baby horse. It can literally stand up and walk within minutes of being born.
Yeah, that's true.
But human babies are born completely helpless.
Yeah.
And they stay helpless for years.
They really do.
So from an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors who formed deep, lasting bonds to jointly protect and provide for their offspring, they had a massively higher chance of keeping those genes alive.
Wow, okay.
So pair bonding evolved as the literal social glue of our entire species.
And there is a specific chemical cocktail driving this glue, right? The literature calls them the cuddle chemicals.
Yes, the cuddle chemicals. I love that term.
It's great. So you've got oxytocin, which is the ultimate bonding hormone. That's what gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling of safety.
Exactly.
And then there's vasopressin, which is fascinating because it's actually linked to territoriality. It's like the drive to protect that bond and keep intruders away.
Precisely. When you spend time with a partner, when you hold hands, or even when you just share prolonged eye contact, your brain releases a flood of these chemicals.
Just from eye contact?
Yeah, just from eye contact. It literally constructs a sense of home inside the other person. And in a healthy context, this chemical wash lowers your baseline stress, reduces inflammation, and it can actually increase your lifespan.
But wait, so our brains evolved to bond so fiercely just to keep us alive. Are you saying our internal software hasn't actually updated for the modern world?
Basically, yes.
It's like our brain can't tell the difference between a healthy, supportive partner and a deeply toxic one. Does it just treat any established relationship like it's a vital resource, like water or oxygen?
That is exactly the trap. What's fascinating here is that your biological drive lacks a moral compass.
Really? It just doesn't care.
It doesn't care if the person is good for you. It only cares that the bond exists.
Oh, wow.
Once you are heavily pair bonded, if that bond is threatened, say, by a breakup or a huge argument, the brain doesn't just feel sad. It triggers the amygdala, which is your primal fear center.
So it's literally reading a breakup as a life or death situation.
Yes, it interprets the loss of the partner as a literal threat to your physical survival.
That is wild.
That is why people feel actual physical chest pain, literal heartbreak, or sheer panic at the mere thought of leaving a toxic partner. Your brain is sounding an alarm that you're going to die alone in the wilderness.
Wow. That explains so much about why people stay.
And this mechanism creates what researchers call partner preference. The bond essentially puts blinders on you.
Like a horse on a track.
Exactly. It makes you blind to other much healthier options in your environment. You genuinely feel like this one specific person, even if they are the one hurting you, is the only person on the planet who can fulfill you or keep you safe.
Okay, if that's our default biological wiring, how does it get weaponized? Because it's one thing to have a bad breakup, but it's another to get stuck in what the sources call a trauma bond.
Right, which is a very specific dynamic.
Yeah, the literature defines a trauma bond as a deep emotional attachment rooted not in safety or love, but in fear and intense power imbalances.
Right, and a trauma bond operates through a deeply manipulative mechanism called intermittent reinforcement.
Which sounds very clinical.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're being honest, this is just the clinical science of addiction applied to human relationships.
Because if the relationship were purely abusive 100% of the time from day one, you would just leave. I mean, no one signs up for that.
Exactly. No one does.
It's the highs and the lows that trap you, right?
Exactly. Think about the physiological whiplash. During a period of abuse or high tension, your brain is flooded with stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline are spiking.
So you're in full panic mode.
You are in fight or flight. It feels like a tiger is in the room with you. But then the abuser suddenly pivots.
They just flip a switch.
Yeah. They offer a brief moment of kindness, a tearful apology, or a grand romantic gesture, which is what we commonly call love bombing.
And when that happens, the brain just goes into overdrive trying to absorb the release. It releases this massive tidal wave of dopamine and oxytocin.
A huge chemical rush.
And because you were in such deep pain just moments before, that sudden relief feels intensely, almost unbelievably rewarding. You aren't just feeling loved, you are feeling rescued.
Rescued by the very person who endangered you. That's the paradox.
That is so messed up.
It is. Your brain becomes conditioned to chase that next hit of dopamine, completely disregarding the mounting harm. It transcends a bad habit. It becomes a literal chemical dependency.
And the sources map this out so clearly. They talk about the 4 phases of the abuse cycle.
Which is crucial to understand.
Yeah. So first, you have tension building. It's that awful feeling of walking on eggshells, knowing an explosion is coming, but not knowing when.
Right, the anticipation.
Then comes the acting out phase, where the abuse or the explosion actually happens. After that is reconciliation, the honeymoon phase with all the apologies.
Where the love bombing happens.
Exactly. And finally, a calm phase, where the abuse temporarily stops, and you convince yourself it's fixed.
And if we overlay those 4 phases onto the timeline of a relationship, they map perfectly onto the 7 stages of trauma bonding. The bond doesn't start with abuse. It almost always starts with stage 1, which is excessive love bombing. They overwhelm you with affection to create a rapid false sense of security.
It feels too good to be true.
Because it is. Then, stage 2 is establishing trust and dependency. They isolate you just enough to convince you they are the only one who truly understands you.
Which sets the trap for stage 3. Criticism. Now that you're hooked, they start subtly devaluing you. You know, a comment about your weight, your job, your friends.
Just chipping away at you.
Yeah, and that bleeds right into stage 4, which is gaslighting. They manipulate your sense of reality so deeply that you start doubting your own memories. You think, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I did provoke them.
And this is where it gets incredibly dark. Because stage 5 is resignation.
You just give up.
You are so exhausted by the chaos that you just give up fighting. You fall into a trauma response called fawning, where you simply appease them to avoid conflict. And then stage 6 is the loss of self. Your identity, your hobbies, your boundaries, they are completely enmeshed with the abuser's needs.
And finally, stage 7, addiction to the cycle. You physically and emotionally cannot walk out the door even though your logical brain knows this person is destroying you.
It is a devastating loss of self.
It is so heavy to even talk about. I mean, it means you literally have to sacrifice your own identity just to survive the day.
You do. And clinically, we have to ask why someone's nervous system would ever accept this. Freud actually coined a term for this underlying Wiederholungszwang, which translates to repetition compulsion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. What does that actually mean in this context?
It means that subconsciously, as adults, we often expose ourselves to situations that perfectly mirror our original unresolved childhood traumas.
Oh, wow.
We are drawn to what feels familiar, desperately trying to get a different, better outcome this time around.
Let's pause on that because that is tragic but also incredibly illuminating. If love was unpredictable, chaotic, or unsafe for you when you were a child, your nervous system actually mistakes toxic, unpredictable adult love for safety.
Because it knows how to navigate it.
Right. It doesn't feel good, it hurts, but it feels familiar. And to the primitive reptilian part of your brain, familiar equals survival.
That is a vital insight for anyone listening. When a clinician looks at a trauma bond, they see warning signs like extreme hypervigilance.
Like constantly scanning the room.
Yes. The person is constantly monitoring the micro-expressions and moods of their partner. Neurologically, what's happening is that the prefrontal cortex, the logical, reasoning, planning part of the brain, is being completely bypassed.
It just shuts down.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
The amygdala, the fear center, is running the entire show.
Mm.
You literally cannot think your way out of the relationship because your thinking brain is offline.
Okay, so we understand the chemicals and we understand the psychological cycles, but our sources actually take us even deeper into the mechanics of this, right down to the actual electromagnetic frequencies of the brain.
This is where the science gets really fascinating.
It really does. If a trauma bond hijacks our biology, what does that actually look like on a physical, measurable level?
To understand this, we have to look at brainwave frequencies, which scientists measure in hertz, or cycles per second. Your brain essentially has gears.
Like shifting gears in a car.
Exactly. Let's look at a few of the main ones. You have beta waves, which operate between 14 to 40 hertz. This is your normal waking consciousness.
Right, so like what we are in right now.
Yes. It's great for solving problems at work. But in a toxic relationship, being stuck in beta translates to chronic stress, anxiety, and being constantly hyper alert. It's like driving a car in a blizzard. You are just gripped to the steering wheel.
Then you slow down into alpha, which is 7.5 to 14 hertz. This is when you are relaxed, maybe daydreaming, and highly suggestible.
Right, the relaxation state.
But below that is theta, right? 4 to 7.5 hertz. Theta is that floaty twilight state right before you fall asleep. It's deep meditation, and crucially, it is the state of hypnosis.
And this raises a terrifying but important question. When do these invisible trauma bonds actually forge themselves into our brains?
Oh, I see where this is going.
The research indicates they are often forged in that hypnotic theta state. Think back to the love bombing phase.
Right.
When someone is showering you with intense affection and grandiose promises, they are lulling your brain out of defensive beta and dropping you down into alpha and theta.
So they bypass your logical defenses entirely.
Completely. You are, from a neurological standpoint, highly suggestible to their version of reality.
It's literal hypnosis. But then, once the abuse starts, the chronic anxiety of the relationship snaps you back into beta. You spend most of your time trapped in this hyper-alert, static-filled survival mode.
Exactly. And we also have to mention gamma waves, which are the fastest, above 40 hertz. Normally, gamma is associated with high-level cognitive processing or sudden bursts of insight.
Like an aha moment.
Right. But in trauma survivors, that gets flipped, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The research shows that in people with PTSD, there is a spike in frontal gamma power.
The brain is overmobilizing.
Right. Instead of a burst of creative insight, that gamma spike causes sudden, intrusive flashbacks of the traumatic memory. Your brain is desperately trying to process something it can't handle.
Okay, so my brain is flashing in gamma and chronically stuck in a stressful beta state. This is where the sources introduce something called the neuroquantum model.
Yes, specifically from a paper on imported consciousness.
Now, this sounds a bit like sci-fi, but it's actually rooted in theoretical physics. What exactly is this model proposing?
Well, it proposes that human consciousness isn't just trapped inside our skulls. It suggests consciousness is an informational field, and that our emotions aren't just private feelings.
They're actually physical things.
Yeah, they are measurable electromagnetic frequencies that constantly interact with the environment around us.
It's interesting, reading through the sources, the authors use highly charged societal terms here to describe how these frequencies interact. They use phrases like emotional patriarchy or the language of whiteness.
Right, I saw that too.
But they aren't actually making a political argument about those things, are they?
No, exactly. They are borrowing those terms strictly as metaphors for power dynamics.
Oh, I see.
They use them to describe situations where One person's frequency, usually rooted in a need for dominion and control, attempts to completely suppress or overwrite another person's frequency. It's about systemic behavioral archetypes of control.
Got it. And the core of this quantum model relies on what they call the law of resonance.
Basically, high coherence frequencies, things like deep gratitude, authentic love, and compassion, align with what physicists call the zero-point field.
Right, the zero-point field.
You can think of the zero-point field as the foundational underlying energy of the universe. When you align with it, you attract positive, coherent outcomes.
Conversely, low frequencies like fear, anger, and anxiety disrupt this coherence and create energetic static.
Which brings us to the real-world application of this theory.
Right. So what does this actually mean for someone listening?
Well, if I am stuck in a beta wave survival mode because of an abusive childhood or a toxic ex, I am basically broadcasting on a static-filled radio station.
That makes sense.
And the law of resonance dictates I'm only going to pick up other static-filled stations. I'm going to subconsciously attract or be intensely attracted to partners who mirror that exact same chaos because it matches my frequency.
That is a perfect analogy, and the mechanics of how we broadcast that static are incredible. The quantum biological research explores how our DNA actually functions as a biophotonic antenna.
Okay, break that down for me. Biophotonic.
Well, biophotons are ultra-weak emissions of light. Our cells literally use light to communicate.
Light, like actual light.
Actual light. Our DNA receives and transmits frequency-based information through these biophotons. So when you are in a trauma response, your DNA is broadcasting a chaotic signal. But, and here's the hope, when you achieve heart-brain coherence, which is when your heart rhythms and your brainwaves synchronize through intentional practices, you actually shift your electromagnetic signature.
You physically tune your body's radio to a completely different, clearer station.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the most crucial part of this deep dive. We know the hardware is glitching. We know the brainwaves are stuck in beta or flashing in gamma. The nervous system is hijacked, and we are broadcasting static.
So how do we fix it?
Right. Because we've firmly established that you cannot just sit on a couch and talk your way out of a biophotonic chemical addiction loop.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And a major reason for that is a phenomenon called the somatic freeze, or dorsal vagal shutdown.
That sounds intense.
It is. This involves the vagus nerve, which is the superhighway between your brain and your gut. When you face inescapable danger, like when fighting or fleeing won't work, your body defaults to its most primitive reptilian response.
It just plays dead.
Exactly. Your nervous system collapses, your heart rate plummets, you feel entirely numb, and your social engagement system just switches off to protect you from the pain.
And to make matters worse, during a traumatic event, a part of your brain called the thalamus breaks down. The thalamus is your sensory filter.
Right. It organizes things.
Yeah, it takes all the sights, sounds, and smells of an event and organizes them into a timeline. But when it breaks, the memory isn't stored as a logical story with a beginning, middle, and end.
How is it stored then?
It gets stored in the body as splintered sensory shards. A sudden smell, a flash of color, an unexplained panic in your chest.
Exactly. And because traditional talk therapy relies almost entirely on the frontal lobes and on language, it often isn't enough to reach those deeply buried, nonverbal shards of trauma.
The logic center just can't touch the primitive fear center.
Right.
So telling someone in a trauma bond to just leave or trying to logic them out of it is like telling a computer to fix its own fried motherboard with a software update.
That is a perfect way to put it.
It literally doesn't compute. The hardware is locked in a survival loop. You have to reboot the hardware first.
That is exactly right. The biological anchor has to be lifted before the psychological escape can happen. You have to use bottom-up therapeutic approaches.
That's bottom up.
Yeah. These are therapies that speak directly to the body and the nervous system first, before addressing the mind.
The sources outline a few amazing ways to do this. Take trauma-informed yoga, for instance. It isn't just about stretching.
No, not at all.
It uses intentional breath work to manually activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. It improves heart rate variability, which basically trains your heart to bounce back from stress faster.
Which is huge for recovery.
Yeah, and it builds interoceptive awareness, which is just the ability to actually feel sensations in your own body and know that you are safe.
Then there is neurofeedback, which sounds incredibly futuristic but is highly effective. It basically uses operant conditioning.
Okay, how does that work?
You are hooked up to an EEG screen, and you play a video game using only your brainwaves.
That blew my mind reading about it.
It's amazing. When your brain produces healthy, coherent frequencies, you win the game. A movie plays or a car moves on the screen.
And when it doesn't?
When your brain produces erratic, stressful beta waves, the game stops.
Yeah.
It acts as a gym for your brain, literally training it to self-regulate and widen your window of stress tolerance.
We also see the profound impact of mindfulness and meditation. These practices aren't about emptying your mind, they cultivate metacognitive awareness.
Right, observing the mind.
Yeah, you learn to observe your thoughts and feelings passing by without being consumed by them. It reestablishes self-leadership.
So instead of your amygdala reacting on autopilot, you regain the fraction of a second needed to actually choose your response.
Exactly. And we can't ignore somatic modalities like expressive arts and psychodrama things like urban improv.
Oh, that's a really powerful one.
It is. In a safe group setting, survivors physically act out their traumatic narratives. They get to reauthor the story in real time.
Which helps them regain the physical agency that the trauma literally stole from their bodies. It just transcends the limits of normal language.
What all of these therapies have in common, along with clinical modalities like EMDR, is that they address the nervous system directly. They physically calm the body down so the brain can finally process the idea of walking out the door.
They move the individual from rigidity, fear, and repetition into a state of stability, complexity, and creativity.
So, to bring this all together for you listening, the biggest, most empowering takeaway from our stack of sources today is that you are not a victim of biological fate. You are not doomed by your past.
No, absolutely not.
You are, as the quantum research calls it, a resonant transducer.
Which means you have the profound ability to change your own internal frequency.
Exactly. By using these somatic therapies to move your nervous system out of that static-filled, stress-laden beta state and settling into a coherent, regulated frequency, you can literally change the manifestation algorithm of your life.
You really can.
You can reboot the hardware, tune the radio, and rewire your biology to finally accept healthy love.
And that leads to a rather profound final thought to leave you with.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, we know that trauma leaves an epigenetic imprint. It actually alters how our genes express themselves, and those stress markers can be passed down generationally.
Right, inheriting trauma.
But if it is also true that our emotional frequencies are broadcast through our DNA via biophotons, this raises an incredible question.
Okay.
Could our individual daily efforts to heal, every time we regulate our breath, every time we achieve heart-brain coherence and break a toxic bond, could that actually be rewriting the genetic code and the evolutionary blueprint for our future descendants?
Wow. Now that is a thought to carry with you. We started this deep dive looking for a clean, simple X-ray of human connection, and we ended up in the beautifully complex waters of quantum biology and generational healing.
It's all connected.
It really is. It turns out the power to change the future is literally vibrating inside your cells. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpacked these incredible sources today. We will see you next time.